Hello, and welcome to Making Creativity Pay, the podcast where we talk to people in creative industries about how they promote and market their work. I'm Dan Barnett, and on this episode I spoke with comedian Aaron Wood about his upcoming Fringe show, More to Life. We talk about moving from 45-minute shows in previous years to this being his debut hour and what that entails, and also why he feels the pay what you want method is the best option for him. We also talk about his approach when being a tour support for other comedians, his podcast OffYaChest and why it came to an end, and about wanting clips to go viral for the right reasons. I started by asking Aaron to give a quick intro about himself.
So my name's Aaron Wood. I'm a stand-up comedian from Manchester. I've been going about 6 years now, and yeah, just trying to make the dream a reality.
That's great. One of the things we're keen to talk about is what will be your debut Fringe show. I know you've done work in progress at Edinburgh, so you're familiar with the Fringe itself, but why this year you kind of wanted to do a full hour?
Yeah, so I did two 45-minute shows at the Fringe in back-to-back years, and the idea was that once I got to the debut hour, I would pick the best 60 minutes out of that 90, if that makes sense. And now I've got to that, and it's really stressful because there's no fun in condensing material down into 60 minutes. The fun is writing something new and, figuring out that it works, and that's sort of the exciting bit. So it's it's a little bit stressful trying to figure out which direction to take it. And also, I'm never going to be happy. I might get a bad review at the Fringe and I'll be like, I knew I should have done this other bit. But yeah, I just tried to be really sort of well prepared for when it came down to it. And now just sort of felt like the right time to do it because I've done two 45 minutes. If I did another 45-minute show, it would feel a little bit odd, I think. Most comics just do 145 and then they do the hour. So yeah, it felt like the right time to do it.
Yeah, I had a guest on before who called it a coward's hour, which I think was a bad thing to say. Where it's. I mean, I know there's a lot kind of thing about kind of what calls a debut, but so going from 45 to an hour. I mean, how different is that kind of arc within a show?
That's what I'm still trying to figure out. I've only done the 45s now, so I'm just previewing the hour and whatnot. But for me, it was just that I wanted to get good in the dark. Like when you do the 45 minutes, you're not really susceptible to reviews or awards or industry. You're just sort of doing your own thing and you can do whatever you want. And yeah, it just meant that I could sort of get good by myself and figure out what stand-up is. I don't want to go straight in and do an hour and then suddenly you've got these eyes on you and people sort of like judging you and things. Like I last year I got a couple of reviews and stuff, but I didn't reach out to them personally and try to get them to come or anything. They just turned up, but it felt like a good way to just sort of figure out what my voice was and the type of comic I wanted to be, whilst without having all the pressure of the industry sort of looking at you.
Yeah, and so those ones. I mean, how many days across the month did you do the full month, but the 45 minutes?
I did the full month last year, and the year before I did about 2.5 weeks, so near enough the full month.
Yeah, I don't know if you wanted to kind of talk a little bit about the show, or is that still TBC? We're mid-May at the moment.
Yeah, the show's just essentially just about my life and like I grew up really working class. That we had absolutely nothing when I was growing up, and it's still not too dissimilar now. So yeah, we were just trying to survive for like so much of my life. And then like the idea that, when you're a kid, you just sort of imagine that it's all going to be all right once you get to an adult. And you look at when you were younger, you used to look at adults and think they've got it all figured out. They've got so much money and they're all so happy. And then you get to adulthood and you're like, oh, they were lying. They were lying about it the entire time. So yeah, it's just sort of exploring that and like what it is that I want out of my own life and just trying to make the best out of, I guess, a bad situation. And yeah, well, it's a lot funnier than it sounds.
That's the thing. There's a lot of people who kind of see shows. I saw Roscoe McClellan's show last year, Sudden Death. It was about him possibly having a fatal heart condition, and you kind of think, oh God, that's. But the show itself is really good, and so yes,
yeah.
There's humor everywhere, I guess.
Oh, totally. Yeah, like when I was like having to, sort of describe the show when I was trying to like pin down a venue and things. I was like, say, okay, what are the themes it touched on? I listed all the themes. I was like, I wouldn't come to this. I wouldn't go and see that show if it was written down like that. You've got to sort of sell it in a different way. But when you're trying to apply to a venue, you need to be like, okay, so it touches on all of this. So you read it like, Jesus Christ, sounds dreadful. Sounds so depressing. But yeah, it's not. It's actually much the opposite. So I like to turn these kind of heartwarming and uplifting in parts.
And in terms of kind of the prep, I mean, how often are you doing work in progress at the moment?
I'm trying to do as many as I can. I've got, about 5 or 6 books in. I've done about 5 already. Ideally, you want to do one every night as a comic, but, they're quite hard sells. I don't think there's unless you're already well known, I don't think there's many people wanting to come out to watch something that they are personally told might not be very good. Like that's the whole part of a work in progress. You go, yeah, I'm going to figure out the show and it might be a bit pants, but come along, it's cheap tickets. But like, no one's going to go, it's Friday night, let's go and watch something that might be dreadful. So yeah, the hard sells. So like, I used to be a promoter myself. I used to book my own nights, and as soon as it got to Edinburgh Fringe season and I was booking previews in, it just nosedived in sales. It was dreadful. Like we went from like 60, 70 people a week to 15. Because, yeah, I think they're quite tricky sells. But, yeah, I'm trying to get as many as I can in to be well prepared.
And so you're based up in Manchester. What's the comedy scene like there? Because obviously, so much of anything artistic is London-based. And then obviously for the Fringe, everything's Edinburgh. I know Manchester, Liverpool have pretty good comedy scenes. I mean, how have you kind of find it there?
Yeah, it's great. I mean, you can get on stage every night in Manchester. We've got the Frog and Bucket there, who are really they really sort of champion new acts, particularly women in stand-up. So it's a really sort of nice hub to be in. And there's so many internationals come and just move to Manchester now, like Canadians and Australians and things, just because like I say, you can get on stage every night and it's far cheaper than London to live here. So not much cheaper these days, but it's definitely going in the wrong direction. But yeah, you can get on stage every night. There's sometimes twice, to be honest. So yeah, it's a good little spot to be in, and you're only an hour away from a lot of major cities here too. So,
and I know you've done a lot of tour support. Kind of how have you found that? And do you kind of speak to other comedians who've kind of maybe already done a full Fringe show about any hints and tips or things like that?
Yeah, so I guess a little bit. I did a lot of it on my own with the just trying to be prepared with doing the 45 minutes. I definitely reach out to more people if I hadn't done the 45 minutes. But with tour support, definitely when I first started doing it, I was way out of my depth. Like there was so many acts. Like Comstay gave me an opportunity when I was about an hour and a half into stand up, and I was not ready. I was just messaging loads about it. Like I messaged Callum Oakley a lot because he'd opened for Paul Smith, and was like, "What do I do?" And he was like, "Just go out there and bomb because you're going to. It's literally the only way when you're that new and because they're just not there for you, and especially for like an audience like Tom's. They're a nice bunch, but they've seen it all over the years by following him. He takes like a new act every year to just go and sort of cut their teeth. So they've seen the worst of the worst and the best of the best, I guess. So yeah, just trying to trying to do the best you can when you're really new, and then as they sort of progress further into it, like I think there's a bit of an art form to it, and I always just like to make jokes about the acts that I'm opening up for. Because they've got the audience have got a vested interest in that act. So I always just try to circle things back round to them, and just try to get the show off to a good start, really.
How is the balance in terms of when you're doing support? In the nicest way, they're not necessarily there to see you, but you've also got a responsibility not to ruin the room. I mean, how do you kind of manage those two? I mean, are you allowed to? Do you feel you're allowed to take risks in that it's not the end of the world if something
Yeah, kind of. I always said that I prefer to go on cold. Loads of acts would prefer if like the person they're opening up for goes on in just 10 minutes and sort of warms the crowd up. But then they're doing tour support for themselves, I think. And I always like to sort of put myself in at the deep end. Like if you're opening up for somebody, you just go on cold. They don't even introduce you sometimes. The act in question, like it'll just be the sound guy that'll do it, and you go on to like the most tepid applause. That's as hard as stand up is ever gonna be. And if you can win them over, then I just like to throw myself in at the deep end, and because otherwise you're just doing any regular opening 20. If they go on and like warm them up for you, I don't really. There's like you're almost not why you're there. They don't need you; they'll just do it themselves.
Yeah, no, that makes a lot of sense. So the show you're doing, it's kind of a mix of you can buy a ticket if you want or pay what you want. I mean, one of the things I've talked to a lot of people about is the kind of whole concept of kind of free Fringe, bucket speech, and those kind of things. I mean, is that something you're looking to specifically develop, or do you think you'll just kind of play it by ear when you're up there?
Just sort of feel it out when I'm there. I've done a couple of them now. They're both pay what you want shows previously, so I've done quite a lot of bucket speeches and stuff. But yeah, I think the pay what you want model is great. I think I think it's the best way to do it personally. I know I'm biased, because it's the only one I've really done, but I think there's a lot of people at the bigger sort of paid venues that are charging 13, 14 pound a ticket that were pulling shows last year. I think people are broke these days, and I mean it's always been the case. People have always had very little money, but like more so now. And I do think there's you've got a better chance of filling your room if you do a pay what you want show because there's no risk, and then they'll pay you still at the end anyway if you do a good job. So I don't really feel. I actually think it's that you can make more money just doing pay what you want. So obviously, you don't have to pay for the venue, but then the amount of people like my show would sell out last year with people that bought tickets, and I'd still do a bucket speech, and they'd put more in because they enjoyed the show. So you can make even more money on top of it. I think it's a really good method and a really good way of doing things. And if you like, I already know that if my room holds 55 at the Fringe, and if I can get 25 pre-sales, then I know that the room's going to be full. So it sort of takes away that panic. But I think if you were at one of the big paid venues and you're charging £14 a ticket, you've only got 20 pre-sales. I think you might be hard pushed to sell another 40, in a few hours at 15 quid a go.
And so with a pay what you want, do you think you can almost kind of bust people in at the last minute?
Yeah.
Say, come on, give it a try. And
yeah, just I think it's a lot easier when flyering to just get people to go, yeah, should we just, we'll have a little look. But as soon as you tell them they've got to pay £14, I think you're losing a little bit. So yeah, I definitely think it's a lot easier when flyering to tell people there's no like money commitment or anything like that. They've just got to, commit an hour of the time. But like I always like to flyer myself because nobody can sell you better than you. And I think if I can be, sort of endearing and charismatic with them, they know they're in safe hands, and it'll be a good show.
Speak to some people. Some people are very much, I want to flyer. I love flyering. And then there's others, even though they'll stand up in front of a room in front of 50, 100, 200 people, the concept of them kind of going one-on-one and trying to fly this, kind of fills them with dread.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong, I don't love it. It's not something I'm desperate to go out there and do. And when you wake up with good pre-sales and you go, oh, okay, I don't have to flyer today, it's a really nice feeling. And I do offset it a lot. I hire a lot of flyers. I hire like 5 flyers at a time because I can't bring myself to gig in front of 6 people every day. Like the whole year builds up to the Fringe, and I'll put everything I can into filling that room. But yeah, I do tend to have the best returns when I fly in myself. I think it's just something you've got to do. I think like you can offset it, but I think that generally you're better off doing it yourself. I think because then you know exactly what you're getting. Some flyers are known for not flyering really. I've seen a lot of flyers in the bin from different acts.
So you're on, is it 445, something like that? I think it was.
It's 450.
450. Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of looking to get the kind of post-lunch market. Is that?
Yeah, I think it's a good time. I think anywhere between sort of 2 and 5 is good. I think if you go to 7, 8 p.m, you're competing with the big docs, the big acts of the Fringe that are in these, huge rooms and things. So yeah, I don't like to sort of be any later or earlier than 2 o'clock really. Because I think if you get a different type of audience, I did a split show with a friend of mine at 12:45 p.m. and oh man, that was they were good shows, but you do get a very different, like people there drinking a coffee, and I'm talking about, I don't know if I can swear on this, but I'm talking about women. You know what I mean? It's a lot. It's a lot to take in at 12:45 in the afternoon. So I think, definitely after the lunch, when people are already drinking, I think is a good spot.
Yeah, it's just I spoke to one performer, and they were saying it was kind of one of the things they noticed. I think they were on at like 12:30, but all their work in progresses were in the evening. So there's certain bits of a show where you get a bit of energy or those kind of things that just didn't really translate at 12:30. And it's weird to kind of think of that, but yes, different moods suit different things at different times.
Yeah, I think if you're well known, you can do a show at 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock. But then equally, why would you if you're well known? Like I know there's some acts that do those shows and because they like to get it out of the way and stuff. But I think the premiere time is about 8 p.m. And if you're well known and you can sell tickets at 8 p.m, I don't know why you'd do it at 11 a.m. Seems wild.
And in terms of kind of promotion, so obviously you've got the on the day flyer and all that kind of stuff. I mean, how much are you looking to use social media, whether that's clips, posts, activity, that kind of stuff? Is it kind of relatively organic, or are you kind of looking to kind of have a plan in place for the month?
Yeah, so the the previous 2 years, I've done 2 shows. I've done extra shows. I've done a like a split show, like a compilation style show where I would host it, and then we did last year. I did it was sort of like a theme show. It was called Late Night Drunk Comedy Challenge, and it was just a dumb hour where like we just play games and have the comics on stage, and we're all getting drunk, and it was just a laugh. But it takes up so much of your time. So it sort of means that your promotion while you're there just sort of like tails off. And in your mind, you just go, well, I'm doing this extra show and then that'll promote my solo show. So it's fine. But yeah, my plan is this year to get a clip out of every show and post it, to promote it. And I'll have a trailer that goes out, in July before the Fringe starts. And yeah, and then I post all my reviews and stuff like audience reviews and things. And yeah, just trying to create a little bit of buzz. Because I think that a lot of people now, when they get flyed, the first thing they'll do is check you out on socials. So yeah, I think if you can be posting that you've had good audience feedback already, I think it's a good way to make sure people come now.
Looking through some of the stuff you've done, you had a podcast up until towards the end of last year.
March last year it was.
March last year. You're probably one of the few comedians who's kind of gone the other way, who now doesn't have a podcast.
Yeah.
Whereas so many people I speak to, they'll do a show, and one of the other things they've got their own podcast. You were kind of ahead of the curve there. Do you see that kind of either coming back or doing something else?
Yeah, I'm not really sure, to be honest. We did the podcast for about 2 and a bit years, something like that, in 2.5 years maybe. And we built up like a decent listenership. We had about 4,000, but it's not enough to make any money. Not even close. So I remember the conversation we had when we agreed to stop doing it is that we'd had over 100 million views on social media from the podcast. And that translated to 4,000 listeners. And I said to Liam, my co-host, I said, do we need to get another 100 million views to get 8,000 listeners? Because that still won't make us any money. And 100 million views is really hard to get. And we both just sort of agreed that it was taking up so much time. Like, the reason we actually stopped it was it got to March last year and I hadn't even started last year's Fringe show. So I was 4 months out and I needed to write an entirely new 45 minutes and I hadn't at all. And we were spending like 20 hours a week doing this podcast, and it just meant that it was taken away from everything else we wanted to do. And yeah, I just think it sort of ran its course a little bit. We were having loads of fun doing it, but it was just exhausting. I think when you see podcasters that have got a producer, I think it's a lot easier. And obviously, they're paying a producer, and they're taking money out of their pocket and stuff. But we just couldn't afford to do that, so we were doing it all ourselves, and it just takes away the love of it a little bit. And like if one of us went away, we'd record 4 or 5 episodes that week to sort of like manage, like, he goes on holiday for 2 weeks and then we need to release 2 episodes a week because we had a Patreon as well. So we'd release 2 episodes per week while he was away. And you just like, this is just, it was so much work. And I think quite a lot more work than people realize. And yeah, when you're not making money from it, and it's taken away from other things, you do have to sort of go, is this worth it? And, I think it was good because it helped to sell tickets and stuff. Like I did work in progress shows, and I think definitely helps with the Fringe because I sold out my runs, and I don't think that would have been quite as possible without, the online presence and plugging it on the podcast. But
it's interesting saying about the Patreon, because obviously is when it goes from being fun to being, a business effectively, in that you've then got paying customers that you have to kind of supply something, and that then adds an awful lot of pressure.
Yeah, we had maybe 100 patrons and stuff, and paying £3 a month, and then Patreon take their cut. It's like £250. So it's not even close to, like, you're splitting that between the two of us, and then we're covering his fuel because he used to drive from Liverpool to Manchester. So it's so much work for just the most minuscule amount of reward. And yeah, I think if you can get to say like 1,000 patrons, that's when you sort of go, okay, we're crushing it now, and you're making a real decent living off it. But yeah, prior to that, I think it's really tricky. So
because I was looking, you've got like about 30,000 odd followers on Instagram for the podcast.
Yeah, I mean, it was 100,000 on TikTok as well. I migrated that account over to my own in the end because it was just sitting there empty. It seemed like a waste. But yeah, we did really well with numbers online, but I think people just preferred the clips and listening to there's so many podcasts. I think like actually if you're starting a podcast now without a profile that's already existing, I think you need to have a really good idea. It can't just be, 2 or 3 comedians in a room just talking, because like they need to be doing something, because it's so saturated now, and I think that I think people need to be thinking of different things now. That's certainly what I'm trying to do. I don't think I would start another podcast where it's just, me and a friend talking about the weekend of gigs. Like, it's not, I don't think it's sustainable. I think there's too many options out there for much bigger comedians doing that. So
for stuff like TikTok, I mean, how have you found that? Is that, is that TikTok versus Instagram versus YouTube? Do you see, kind of either the podcast or clips or things like that? Where's the kind of main avenue, or do you just kind of push it everywhere and see what happens?
yeah, I do just kind of push it everywhere. I think it's really hard to sustain. People say that you need to post every day in order to, for the algorithm to recognize you as being like, people say you've got to serve the algorithm, and, you've got to constantly be a slave to it. And it's just not sustainable. It's unrealistic that I could get a clip out of stand-up every single day. I'd have to gig twice a day. And even then, there's no guarantee the clips are going to be that good. I've spoke to friends who are huge on TikTok and stuff. One of them I opened up for last year, and he said that he has such an insane back. Like, the clip he posts, like tomorrow, for instance, will be from July last year. Like, he's got such a backlog, because there's no way that if he just did it all of the time that he would be able to sustain it, because you just end up throwing, shit at a wall, if you like, and it ends up not being like really that good content anymore. And I'm really critical of the clip. Like, I literally watched a video this morning from an MC spot I did, and it was great in the room, and I was like, it's just not worth it. That I don't think it's that good, and I'm really sort of hypercritical of it. Yeah, I don't think it's sustainable to post every single day. The podcast certainly helped that, because we would post a clip, every other day at least, and then alongside stand-up clips, it meant that we were constantly out there. But yeah, I mean, I don't think I posted on Instagram in 2 weeks now. I have to sort of look about, what am I posting this for, Is it actually providing entertaining value to the people that are following me? Or, yeah, I know it sounds quite boring, but I try and look at it objectively and see if it's worth posting.
I guess it's kind of difficult as well, is that a lot of the time the things that go really big are not necessarily good, well-structured jokes. It'll be where someone is really ripping into an audience member.
Oh, it's calling an audience member a paedophile. It's like it's never been done before. But the people on Instagram are, oh my God, this is amazing. And then you'll post this this bit that you've worked on for a year, and it's got pauses and like structure and nuance to it, and it does absolutely no views whatsoever, because in that pause they went, oh, he's boring now, and just scrolled, and you're like, oh, it can kind of it's definitely frustrating to like, the best clips are the ones that are just like dumb interactions, and also quite negative ones, like, which is a little bit depressing. Like, if you have a moment where like recently I ended up deleting the clip because it was frustrating me how well it was doing for the wrong reasons. There was a girl in the audience, and she was filming me, and I asked her to stop, and she just refused. And I was like, what are you doing? It's so strange. Like, I'm not the Kings of Leon. Like, put your phone down. Like, are you going to watch this back later? This is such an odd thing to do. And like, I was just having an interaction with her, but all of the comments were just slagging her off for being weird and creepy. And like, I hadn't really even said anything funny in it, but the clip before I thought was really funny did 2,000 views. And then this one it got to like 100,000 views on TikTok in an hour. And you're like, this is just, because they like the drama. They like the beef that's in this like situation. I got rid of it, because it was actually winding me. I was watching the views go up, and I'm like, these aren't going to buy tickets to a show. They're just loving the fact that, I made this woman look a little bit silly for being odd. It frustrates the hell out of me, because you try and provide sort of like uplifting value, like stuff that's fun and exciting, and then like TikTok's just not interested unless you're calling somebody all the names under the sun. It's very strange.
So you're looking to take this show, obviously bulk of it is Edinburgh, but then you're going around the country as well. How have you found that process of getting venues, getting that sorted? And is a lot of that you're kind of thinking, well, that's for after August, I won't think about it too much now?
Yeah, all the venues they're sorted now. I did about 9 dates. I think that'll be all of them. It's just a little mini tour. I don't have enough of a profile to be doing, these huge like 80-date tours that you see comics doing. But it's difficult. It's definitely hard to sort of do it on your own. This is why people have production companies and things. Like, I booked a venue in Newcastle, and then 4 days later they closed. They closed down. It said like, we've been hit by financial troubles, which is obviously terrible, and I'm gutted for them. But in my mind, I'm like, you didn't know that 4 days ago? What is happening here? And it took me like 3 months to find that venue in the first place. But we got a new one now, and it's all good. And I hope the previous venue manages to open up again. I hope they figure it out. But yeah, it's definitely tough because you're like, I'm gigging in these towns, and I've no idea what the good venues are, and I need like 100 capacity rooms, so it's hard to find ones that are the most suitable. It's not like I can go to the big theatre and go, let me do a show here. I just wouldn't sell the tickets. So.
And it must be difficult finding that balance between, obviously, you want to have the ambition of a decent sized room, but you don't want to kind of stretch yourself too much potentially. It's always difficult to kind of.
Yeah, you don't want to be sat in a room that's, you've sold 100 tickets, but it's only 1/10 full. That's dreadful. Yeah. A comic said to me years ago when I first started, because he did like 7 shows, the Frog and Bucket in Manchester. And I was like, that's like one Apollo. Why don't you just do the Apollo? And he said, because it's always better to just be adding shows. And then it shows people that they're missing out on something. And he said he doesn't think he'd have sold as many tickets if he just did one Apollo show versus, hey, we sold out again and we've had another one. Oh, we sold out again and now we've got another one and another one. And it just snowballs a little bit. So he said definitely do rooms that are, almost too small for you, if anything. Like one of my rooms holds 30 people. And yeah, the idea is that hopefully that'll sell out and I'll add an extra one, like an early show, a matinee show or something. And they're the better rooms as well, not necessarily 30 cap, but the smaller rooms are always better. When you start going up into bigger rooms is when, they feel a little bit disconnected and disjointed from the atmosphere, I guess, a little bit. Not that I would now. I'm not going to tour in these big rooms, and it'd be a pleasure. It'd be a pleasure for my bad balance to be able to do that. But yeah, hopefully we'll get there.
And so are you looking to film the show at some point, either at Edinburgh or one of the venues?
Yeah, I was really sort of optimistic about that about 2 months ago, 3 months ago, and I was chatting with somebody about it. And then as the time's gone on, I'm still not in a place where I'm happy with the show. So I've just sort of put that on the back burner for now. And then I know what's going to happen. As soon as I get to the Fringe and I'm happy with the show, I'll be like, yeah, let's film it. But yeah, I don't really want to commit to that right now. I know I'll get the show to a place that I'm happy with, but yeah, it's just cost so much money in order to film it and things. Like I got quoted about $4,500. And yeah, I don't think I'd see a return on that for quite some time. So yeah, we'll see how we get on. I'd like to, but I think it might be a hard sell. $4,500 is a lot of money, and for it to get 1,000 views on YouTube, that'd be pretty depressing. That. So.
And in terms of financials, did you look into the Keep It Fringe fund or anything else?
Yeah. Yeah, I didn't get it. I didn't get the Keep It Fringe fund. You saw, like, it's tough. I think I've kind of done it on this podcast for the last, 30 minutes. I'm not great at selling myself. I think I can flyer people. I can be fun and, jovial, but I'm not great generally at selling myself. And I applied for the Keep It Fringe fund, and you do sort of, scroll through the list of people that got it, and you're like, he owns his own house in London. Where has he got it? It's like you get in your own head, but he's just better at applying. He's better at selling himself. I'm just on it like, I could really do with the money. Please help me. And then they go, well, no. Of course not. We're going to help this person. Let's give us a reason as to why we should. Yeah, I'm not amazing at the whole, point evidence explained throughout the application. I'm not great at that.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's kind of wanted just one sentence. Well, I've got bills to pay. That's why you apply.
Yeah, I told them what my Fringe was going to cost me. I told them how much money I currently had and how much my bills cost. And yeah, you still had other people got it, and that's fine because I don't think I deserved it as much as others. There's definitely people in a worse state than me. There's people that sleep in their car at the Fringe because they can't afford anything else. So it's a little bit frustrating when you see people that already have money and can afford it, but you got to play the game. There's nothing prohibiting them from applying, and yeah, you can't police it. So yeah, if I'd have got it, there'd have been people like, well, he's got his own place with his girlfriend, he's doing fine. So yeah, there's always going to be sort of naysayers for everybody, and you're never going to be able to give it to I think they give it to maybe 200 people, is it 180, something like that?
Yeah.
There's definitely more than 180 people that deserve it and really need the help. So you're never gonna please everybody. But yeah, it's a cool system, and it's good. It's great for the people that do it. It does take a lot of the pressure off, I think. But yeah, I'd love for there to be more schemes like that so that people didn't feel quite so trapped a little bit.
And I guess the difficulty, talking to some people, is that so much of it is money up front with a hopefully it'll come back. And so it's not just having the money, it's having the money and then not seeing a return for 9 months maybe.
Yeah, it's wild, and they take so long to. This with the benefit of a pay what you want show. I got offers from big venues, and I was looking at like I don't know if I'd actually be able to finish the run because I wouldn't have that stream of cash coming in. Like with a pay what you want show, it's ideal because if everyone there hasn't get bought a ticket, every time when they leave, they'll give you a tenner each, and now you've got 300 quid. And you survive off that for the next week and a half while you're at the Fringe. But I think it's if you're doing these big shows where they don't give you your money until October. I don't know, like some that don't give it you till November, and it's just insane. I don't know how I'd ever be able to afford it, and that really did sort of help in my decision making for whether or not I was going to go for one of the bigger rooms, one of the bigger venues, because it's just I don't know how I'd get there. Like I've already spent $4,000 and it's still 2 months away, and I've not even paid my accommodation yet or anything. Like it's just crazy how much it costs. I worked out that I'll need to sell out if I sell out every single one of my seats. If complete sellout, which is unrealistic, I'll make £400 profit, which is obscene, isn't it? That's like it's so unrealistic to sell every single seat out every day. Like, there's that middle Wednesday where everyone sells 15 tickets. Like, it's not realistic to sell out every show, but I need to in order to break even. It's completely nuts.
Theme of this kind of when I talk to musicians or writers or whoever else it'll be, is that there'll be lots of other people circling the creative person who kind of make a decent living out of it, but the person actually doing the creative stuff, well, you have to do it for the love of it, not the money.
Yeah. If the best way to make money at the Fringe is become a flyer. Like some flyer is absolutely caning it. Like if you can flyer for 10 hours a day, you'll get paid 15, 17 quid an hour, and then you'll get a sellout bonus if you do well. You can be all like 400 quid a day just flyer it. Like you'd be absolutely nailing it. Like, cause if I sell out my room, I give 15 quid an hour, and if I sell out, I'll give them 25. Like that's a decent wage. If you do, 10 of them, you're on 250 quid. So yeah, you can make decent money just flyer it. So yeah, maybe that's where I'm going wrong. I'll go up next year and just flyer for the month.
Yeah, call it performance art, and think about it. In terms of other fringes, did you think about Glasgow Comedy Festival, Brighton, Cambridge?
Yeah, I did Glasgow this year. I stayed at Glasgow. I ended up cancelling the show because it just didn't. I think it was oversubscribed this year. I sold out my show last year, and then this year I sold 13 tickets, but 4 of them had already seen the show before at the Fringe, and they were travelling up from Edinburgh to like watch it again in Glasgow, and I just couldn't bring myself to have them drive an hour to just do the show to 13 people, especially when a third of that room has already seen it. So like I'd happily gig to 13 people who had never seen it before, but yeah, it was tricky this year. I think there was a lot of acts not selling very well at all, and they were saying that it's got 3 times as many comics and shows as they had the previous year, and it's just not got the same. Like people do not know that it's happening. The general public really, it's not a place where you can just go and flyer. So yeah, like I know one guy, he sold 13 tickets and 4 showed up, which is he's doing great. He was on tour himself. That was part of his tour, and it just he's a great act and he's nailing it online and stuff. But I think it's just the way it all fell this year. It just wasn't that great. So yeah, I'm not sure if I'd do it next year. I think it's tricky as well because he's so far removed from the Fringe. Like I think the Glasgow Comedy Festival is February or March, I believe. And like that's so far away from the Fringe, but you've got to reply during the Fringe or just after. So like my show was called the same thing that my previous show was called, but now I've sort of left that behind a little bit. I'm not doing that show anymore, so you've just got to drag it all back up. Ideally, it would be in October when it's still fresh in your mind. But I was having to relearn a show that I hadn't done in 8 months.
Thanks so much for doing this. I really appreciate
it. I feel like I just moaned for like 40 minutes.
One other thing I would say, without getting a bit too meta, is how are you finding kind of promotion and what you're doing for the show? So, whether that's things like this, PR bits for Chortle or whoever it might be that you're trying to get noticed by. I mean, how are you finding that?
Yeah, good. So it's the first time I've worked with a PR agent. So I'm working with Julian Hall this year, he's all time. He's the nicest guy. And yeah, I definitely want to kick on now that we're, sort of getting in the latter stage. I don't think there's many people that will buy tickets, way ahead of time unless they really, really know you and love you and they're worried you're going to sell out. So I think now is the time to sort of be pushing on and, you know, throwing my all into the promotion aspects of it. Like I say, I'll have a trailer out and I'll be posting clips as much as I can between sort of now and the Fringe starting. And yeah, just trying to do things just a little bit differently as well, trying to come up with, you know, different ideas for selling the show. And yeah, just I'm quietly confident and hopeful that it'll go well, because it's my first time working with PR. So I like to think I'll get some reviews that I can then use to promote the show. And, you know, whether or not that'll work, who knows? But I've sold the show out previously without having PR, so I like to think that, you know, with extra sort of notches, it'll be not easier, but I'll hopefully, you know, easier. See when we get up there. But
do you have in your head, I mean, don't have to say, do you have like a kind of plan for, you know, what is a successful Fringe?
yeah, so last year I just I posted every day, not posted every day, but like I written in my notes, you know, how many audiences I had each day, how many tickets I'd sold prior to arriving to the Fringe, like before day one. And yeah, I just kind of want to, you know, do a little bit better than that. I don't know if I will, because last year I was opening for an act when we did an Edinburgh show with like to 900 people like a week before the Fringe started. So I think I'll be lucky to sell quite so many ahead of time this year with not having that before it. But yeah, I just trying to do better than last year. The reason I sort of write it down in my notes is so I can sort of gauge how well it's going and work out what needs improvement and things, and see how we go.
And so are things like reviews a big thing? You know, do you feel that they can kind of really give some impetus?
I guess so. I think we put a lot of weight on reviews, because if you get a bad one, the only people that know about it are you and other comics that are actively searching out reviews. So that's no big deal, because everyone gets bad reviews. Like, you struggle to find an act that's not absolutely killing it now who hasn't had a 2-star review from Chortle. So it's obviously the goal is to definitely get good reviews, but if you don't, then I'm trying to sort of I don't know how, like, it's gonna kill me inside if I get really bad ones, because, you know, you feel like you put so much work in. But ultimately, in my previous runs, I've always had good feedback from audiences. I've never really had a bad review on the Fringe website from, you know, the ones that audiences can leave and stuff. And ultimately, they're all that really matters. So if I'm still getting good reviews from audiences, then that's all that really. If I get a 5-star review from a big publication, then amazing, and I'll plaster it all over my posters. And use it to sell the show, because I do think it helps. But, you know, if I don't get many, or if I don't get any good ones, then it is what it is. You just kind of got to take a chance on yourself, haven't you, and open yourself up to it and see how it goes.
Thanks so much for your time. I do, just to finish, talk about where you are, where people can see the show.
Yeah, so it's the Hoots on Grassmarket every day except the 12th. It's at 4:50. It's a really nice little room. It's got aircon, crucially. That's really helpful. And yeah, it's my debut hour. I've worked really hard on it for the past 2 years. And I know I sell myself terribly on shows like this, and I kind of hate doing them for that reason, because I feel like people listen to it and they go, well, we're not going to see that. That's a stupid idea. But yeah, I've worked really hard on the show, and I'm really pleased with, you know, where it is already, with still 2 months to go. So yeah, 4:50 p.m. at Hoots at the Grassmarket every day. So, and I'm at Aaron Wood Comedy on Instagram and Facebook, TikTok, all that. So if you want to check me out before that.
Thanks again to Aaron for taking part. You can find more details in the show notes about where to find him, both online and details about his Fringe show and upcoming UK tour that starts in September. Thanks for listening.